The IDE tab, or the images folder within the server, houses all your images or textures that you can use. Now you can use an image as a standalone element, so you can just drag this down as its own container and you can manipulate it the same way as you can any other object. However, you can use it also to texture objects. So here we have a cube. We'll scale it up. We'll go back into a server, into the images, and we'll drag this image onto our cube. Now if we click on our image on the container, it takes us into the image editor. And there's a couple settings in here that we'll look at. First, it shows you the little picture here of the image that you have on your container. It also tells you the name, and to the right here it tells you the width and the height of this. Now it's best to use smaller images when texturing objects on account of the performance. This is a little bit big, but for demo purposes it's fine. So first of all, what we have down here is what's called mapping, and by default it's always set to linear when you drag something onto a container. We also have the option to change it to vertex, which kind of pins it to each corner. We also have a reflection, which reflects it. There's also a spherical, a cylindrical, and a cube. And as you change each one, you can kind of see how it affects each thing. Now it's going to look different on every object because every image is different and every object is a little bit different in shape. So no two images or objects are really ever going to look alike when you're working with your images. So for right now, we'll just go back to linear and keep it right there. There's also a quality, and it's set to bitmap by default. You can change it to pixel, which degrades it a little bit, and linear, which also degrades it. Bitmap is usually the best setting. There's also an environment set to modulate by default. You can change it to your blend, decal, add signed, or interpolation. There's also a wrap, and by default this is set to repeat as well. You can put it to clamp. If it's on clamp and we come down here to scaling, we can scale this down. You can kind of see how it clamps the image, but you get these lines here. If we change it back to repeat, it will repeat the image over and over. This area down here, you can change the position of it on the X and the Y. If it's set to linear, as it is right now, you can change the rotation on the X, Y, and Z. The scaling, you can change this up to positive or negative numbers, so you can set the size of it as you want. There's also a single scaling, so you can single scale these images if you want as well. There's a center point, so you can center the images here. If we go back and change the mapping to reflection and come back down to the bottom, you notice your rotation parameters are grayed out and can no longer use that. We'll change it back to linear. You also do have the option here for compression, so you can change it to DTX1, 3, or 5. The default is none, so there's no compression. If you do need to optimize the scene a little bit, if you take it down to DXT5, that's the most compression on it. Little reset buttons next to each setting, so if you need to reset it back to the default, you can. There's also a blur option, so you can blur this image a bit, and you can also sharpen the image a bit as well. Now at any time, if you wanted to replace this image, two ways you can do that. You can drag it down onto your container itself, right on top of the other image, and it will replace it, or you can drag the image onto this little icon within the image editor. You can also combine images in here, so if we wanted to combine an image with an alpha, we could drag an alpha image into here, and now you can see the result of that in the render window.